Welcome on this Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, I can't believe that we have reached session 5 of our Careers in AI series. It seems like we've been having these conversations for a long time, but also in such a short space of time as well. We've covered so much. As everyone filters in from the waiting room, I'll just introduce myself. For those of you that haven't joined us for one of the sessions previously, my name is Morag Doig and I run the Alumni Career Centre here at London Business School. Now, looking back over the past 4 sessions, we've really explored how AI has been transforming everything from hiring, leadership to career pathways to different roles to how they're going to shape our roles. And we close the series today with perhaps the most human question of all. How do we stay resilient in the face of all this constant AI-driven change? So this session is going to be all about that. It's all about that personal, organizational strategies that help us not just cope with disruption, but really grow through it and to a certain extent, how do we thrive in that context as well? So as AI is shaping our workplaces, how do we manage uncertainty, reduce anxiety, and most importantly, I think, support each other through this transition? Our host, Dr. Toby Velt, is joined by today's guest, Amy Bradley, a thought leader on compassionate leadership and organizational well-being, and we're absolutely privileged to have her joining us at LBS at the moment as a guest lecturer. Together, they're going to explore how to build psychological resilience, the importance of leading with empathy in this world of accelerating change. So whether you're excited about AI's potential, like I am, or feeling overwhelmed by it, like I was 2 weeks ago, this session is for you. So as ever, we're going to have about 30 minutes of discussion between our 2 experts, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. So I encourage you, pop your questions in the chat or hold on to them and unmute and ask Dr. Bradley and Toby towards the end. We want to make this final session really convivial, really conversational, and really impactful. Since we only have 60 minutes and not 90 as we have had for the rest of the series, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand over to Toby. Over to you.
All right. Thank you, Morag. Thank you for pulling this together. I can't believe we're actually at the end of 5 of 5. You've been able to do this. It's been amazing. I've been learning a ton from our speakers and the people that join. Really exciting, really fun, and super interesting. And the notes you send out afterwards are something I'll definitely be reviewing. So love that. And if anybody has been able to make all 5 or even 4, you deserve some kind of a t-shirt or a certificate or something. Well done for that. That's been many hours of participation. Really appreciate it. And we will jump right in. So let me hand it over to Amy. She's going to introduce herself again and kind of set us on our journey. Over to you, Amy.
Thanks, Toby. Thanks, Morag. And hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be joining you. Just so I can describe where I am. I'm sitting in Sussex Place, joining you from LBS. We've been running a program here this week. Just to say a little bit about me, I was delighted to be invited to speak to this topic. It's particularly close to my heart. I have a background in positive psychology. My doctorate, which was completed now longer than I care to remember, actually. My daughter's 18 and I mark it by starting it when she was only a baby. So around 15 years ago, I finished the doctorate in positive psychology. And in particular, I have an interest in one particular area, which is post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is the idea that despite the ups and downs that we have in life, there's always a positive to draw from them. And my own work was with leaders exploring the growth that leaders had experienced following crucible moments or difficult life experiences. I have, Morag, as you said, I have a passion for compassion, and I spend a lot of my time working with leaders on the practice of self-compassion, but also compassionate leadership, and I'm really interested in the impact that has on individual and organizational performance. So that's a little bit about me. I'd love to sort of set the scene a little bit, Toby, if that's okay, just on today's topic.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
So I just maybe wanted to open by saying something about what I mean by resilience. I thought it might be worth getting that on the table, first of all, because there are different views of what resilience means. And I feel quite strongly about my belief about what it isn't. And for me, resilience isn't about bounce back. Resilience is often talked about as a kind of bouncing back from adversity or bouncing back from challenges. For me, actually, resilience is about change. Resilience is about adapting, staying flexible, and being mentally, physically, and emotionally resourced so that we can thrive. Bounce back, for me, suggests that we go back to a kind of original state, but actually, in my view, resilience essentially is about learning. So I just want to say something about what I notice in my work. And what I notice is essentially that we've become, wherever we are in the world, living through an age of overwhelm, and overwork becoming almost a way of life for us. With the speed, the pressure, the complexity of our work, our autonomic nervous system is kind of constantly switched on, meaning we've got adrenaline and cortisol in our systems, which isn't sustainable. In fact, Gallup, in their most recent State of the Global Workplace report in 2025, they measure engagement and emotions across over 140 countries, and they suggest that 40% of us are overwhelmed and stressed a lot on a daily basis. The other thing I am noticing is a kind of an unhealthy striving cycle. That's what I describe it as, where leaders, professionals in organizations are either trying to run at 100 miles an hour, doing more, going faster, operating at pace, or crashing and burning out. These kind of two extremes of performance, and it, in my view, just not sustainable. Also, more attention being paid to our outer world. And what I mean by that is, constantly comparing ourselves with others, competition to get ahead, striving for perfection, rather than focusing on our inner world. And what I mean by that is really listening to what our bodies are telling us about the pace, pressure, and complexity of life, and listening to our bodies about when to kind of pause and reset, and setting our boundaries around what's sustainable for us. So that's what I'm noticing. I want to open with two provocative, maybe, things to say about what I think we can do about it to build our resilience in this kind of world of AI. And the first thing I'm going to say is we need to be absolutely ruthless about the role technology plays in our lives. Where is it supporting us? Where is it hindering us? And in my view, nature plays a key role in this recalibration for me. As we become more urbanized and more technologically driven, this is taking us further and further away from our roots as a species, where at one time we would have lived in symbiosis with the earth. We know the research around time spent in nature, it increases our resilience, our creativity, our attention, and that soft fascination that we get, when we feel the warmth of the sun on our skin, or we just stop to smell a flower, or just take a moment to savor the natural world. That's kind of that soft fascination can give us and our minds some vital downtime from technology. The second thing I want to say as a means of building resilience in this age of AI is, and by the way, this is caveated with there's a reason why I've written a book called The Human Moment. I think our need for caring connection with one another as human beings is more important than ever. When we look at rates of loneliness, it's actually Generation Z, it's the younger generations who are reporting higher levels of loneliness compared to older adults. Again, looking at the same Gallup study that I mentioned earlier, 1 in 4 Gen Zers are saying they experience loneliness every day. And then when you look at that demographics use of generative AI, they're some of the highest users. And I don't know if any of you saw this, but Mark Zhao Sanders' research that was published in HBR this month, he's suggesting the #1 use of generative AI is now therapy and companionship. So people are looking to generative AI for conversation and connection, as well as structured emotional support. And so, in my view, there's a role for all of us to make sure the pendulum doesn't swing too far in that direction, and that actually we have a collective responsibility to make sure we're taking time to connect with each other at a basic human level. Have maybe I've talked too long.
No,
Just
not at all.
notice myself because I got kind of, into the flow there. But hopefully that's enough by means of opening.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And we did mention that HBR article, I think last time, where we talked about the #1 use in 2025 shifted. It was up there in 2024 apparently, but now that is the #1 use of GPT, which I have to ask a question on that, because as a chunk of AI, that system will remember the past conversations. And to a point, it's not forever yet, but it will be someday. But it remembers the conversation back to a point, and then it generates a predictive outcome of what the possible next set of words could be. And so for the person using it, it might be comfortable, it might be familiar, but it lacks that spontaneity and the creativity of a human friend, or somebody who's just going to disagree with you all of a sudden and decide to go down. So what do you think I don't want to call it the shallowness, but the impact of your friend being a GPT?
I can see why its popularity in a sense, and when you look at that report in depth, they talk about the perception of judgment that comes with human conversation, and conversation with AI, perhaps the perception that there isn't judgment there. And also, of course, it's accessible 24/7. If you want to have a chat in the middle of the night, there's a facility for doing that. And also it's accessible financially, because of course some of these are freely available. But I wouldn't personally want to see the pendulum swing so far that we lose that spontaneity that you're talking about, Toby. The magic that happens in a moment between two human beings when we're fully present for one another in the moment. I think there's something that is quite special about that. And so I think obviously there's a place for it, but I wouldn't want to see it be the only place.
Yeah, and agree. I think your first point too about being ruthless with tech, I think I'm starting to notice that if we let tech happen to us, we may not necessarily be the beneficiary of that.
Yeah.
And that is of concern. And you, in a previous conversation we had, you turned me on to this article at Stanford Business. It was a case study they put out in 2024. It's called "The Humanity in the Age of AI." And we'll send this out after the hour. In the opening paragraph, this is a question I'll pose to you, Amy. It says, in a world where artificial intelligence will be smarter and more efficient than humans and capable of impacting 60% of our jobs, how should society educate the minds of future generations to help humans thrive? How should adults in today's workforce prepare, given the change has already begun?
You know, AI presents us with an opportunity to create the conditions for human thriving and machine efficiency. I suggest our angst comes when we conflate the two. And actually, being choiceful about how we interact with AI gives us an opportunity to create space for ourselves to actually elevate our own consciousness. You know, AI helps us in a way to it used choicefully to make decisions about where we place our attention. So, you know, if we're using AI to help us to automate tasks, for example, then that gives us space to, you know, really look at our own emotional intelligence, or to spend time really to be creative around, you know, novel solutions that we can create when we come together as human beings. So I think it's about how we use it and what that then unlocks us to do, you know, as a species, rather than just blindly, as you said before, kind of letting it run us. You know, this is just an anecdotal story here, but I experimented for myself last summer and I had a month's complete tech detox. I decided to do it because my current research is called Walking Ourselves Well. And it's about, you know, what happens when we do completely disconnect and reconnect back with the natural world in ways I was explaining at the start. And so I had this month, no email, no phone, literally no tech at all. And people were saying, oh my goodness, how are you going to do this? What about the family? And, you know, what happens if they need to get a hold of you? And we kind of live with this sense of needing to be contacted and kind of available. And what I noticed was I was waiting for this epiphany and I didn't feel anything. And the month went on and, you know, I just wasn't noticing anything. But it was funny, after 30 days, when I went back to my phone, I was almost physically repelled by it. It felt like a kind of dirty addiction. It was really strange, but I hadn't noticed it before that. And it really helped me to think, how can I recalibrate my relationship with it? But it took that month to kind of, for that realization to come about. I've gone completely off on a tangent from your question, actually, but
yeah, but now
I think it's about being really choiceful, you know, choiceful about how we use it, and what does that then release us to do? You know, to think about purpose, to really start to operate through our values, and to really connect with each other, to really be present for each other, so that we make sure the human moment is that magical one you talked about, Toby.
So that bridges something we talked about a couple sessions ago, which was in a headline I read this morning. I think it was in the Journal, and it said, you know, half of new hires for recent graduates will go away because they're being replaced with AI and so forth. And it ties back to what you started off saying, is if the human, the employer, let's say, values the productivity, the number of widgets that get stamped or packed or something, we're not going to look so great compared to AI. The human is not going to perform as well. And then there'll be things, headlines that will say, this human was replaced by AI, these jobs got removed, et cetera, because the AI did it better than the human. If the employer, government agency, educator values a human component or trait, then all of a sudden we should, in theory, have more time to focus on that level of productivity, and their KPI should be around that instead of number of widgets and so on. And then it will look like AI is helping the human be more productive and do more human things. But it comes from what we value from leadership.
Yeah.
And when you were on your detox, your retreat, and you came back, what did you notice any change in your behaviors interacting with the tech?
Well, the first thing I noticed that I was much more creative, and my decision making, there was a level of clarity that I hadn't experienced before. I was talking to a leader only this week who has started practicing mindfulness regularly, and funnily enough, he's actually using tech to do that. So he's using an app called Insight Timer. But what he was saying, and it's the same thing from my tech detox, by creating space to really practice mindful meditation or time in nature, it elevates our performance in different ways, but it takes the organization to value that, rather than trying to measure us as machines, thinking about different forms of value for human contribution. We do it to ourselves. We kind of measure ourselves based on time worked, by monetizable hours, rather than, contribution through coaching others or through the cultivation of positive emotions in a team, or engagement, so that people can really leverage their strengths. So I think you're absolutely right that we need to widen the idea of what contribution means when we look at human contribution, and differentiate that from machine.
Yeah, and I was just thinking of a case. I had a conversation maybe 6 months ago with a very large consulting firm, and they said, we all, consulting firms in general and law firms and so forth, we charge by the hour. And so the junior associate is this much, and the senior partner is this much, and the entire business model is focused on charging by the hour. And then they say, well, so what's going to happen when everyone has access to ChatGPT, which they do, and all of a sudden, what the associate could do, it took them an hour, now can take her 10 minutes. And then everybody's doing this. So this will raise all boats kind of situation. So I think in a way, something's going to be forced here to say, okay, we're very efficient in our hour, and not like those other guys. Or we're not talking about time. We're talking about output, results, impact, some other form of measurement that is not related to a simple task productivity scale. And where that goes is a human decision. Like, is it going to augment and make the human more human? Or is it going to make the human work for the AI? This is kind of where we've had some discussions in the past too.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to my point earlier that the problems come, in my view, where we're conflating. Are we trying to create the conditions in organizations for humans to thrive and contribute in meaningful and purposeful ways, or are we treating humans as machines? And I think about what happens to us as a result. We start to measure our own self-worth by the number of hours work or the amount of productivity. And actually, there's more to us than our work. I think also we've got to talk about the centrality of the role of work in our lives that's become magnified beyond, we're more than our jobs. And, I think that's also part of the issue that, we start to measure our own worth by the same things that we're measured at within organizations, which, I think is problematic when we talk about well-being and resilience for us generally as human beings.
Yeah, I know we're getting a little short on time. I want to come back to one of the first things you talked about, which is your definition of resilience wasn't about bouncing back to something we were before, but about being able to be part of the change and move forward with that change. AI is causing massive change in all aspects of the work, our lives, education, apparently relationships, faith. I mean, this is impacting everything. And it's hugely impactful for moving forward in a completely different world than we're accustomed to. And as you said, everyone's running flat out, it seems these days. Any kind of strategies or advice for people to say how in the world we live in, moving forward, what are some strategies we can undertake to be more resilient?
Yeah, thank you. So I want to suggest a few things, and they're all evidence-based strategies. So the first thing to say is in the age of kind of overwhelm, when the change is happening at the pace that it's happening, we can feel out of control. The research by Barbara Fredrickson, I want to go to first of all, because she suggests that just small daily habits can improve our emotional resilience, whether it's a daily walk or protected, rest-focused downtime, just sharing a family meal. They can help us to feel a sense of control. We know that teams in organizations that maintain routines such as a regular check-in, they report feeling more grounded and capable of making decisions under pressure. The second thing I would say is about anchoring ourselves in mindfulness practice or self-compassion practice so that we can stay true to our values and live by them. So we know also that by doing that, that can help us to know what we can and can't influence. People who are able to stay clear about the things they can control tend to report lower stress and higher adaptability in the face of change. And I also want to say something about what Jane Dutton calls tilling for connection. I love this term because she uses the analogy of soil. We till the soil to make it more fertile. And she talks about the importance of tilling for connection between us as human beings every day, going back to what I was saying about loneliness and how loneliness might be driving the use of generative AI for companionship. How about we just till for connection every day? I love Rick Hanson talking about our interactions being like a bumper car quality. We bump off each other on the tube or in the street. How about if we actually just take a moment to be more present for each other and just to actually appreciate the good qualities? That's the tilling for connection, just taking a moment to do that for each other. And Toby, as you said, be the change that we need as a species so that we can connect and care for each other in ways we know we do so well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So on our abbreviated session here, we're going to switch gears and go over to Morag and look to engage all of you.
First of all, I want to pick up on a few comments that have come through in the chat. Lisa says she's done something similar with social media, I think referring to your detox, and found the process very interesting. Lisa, if you want to share with us, we'd be really keen to hear, what your insights were on that. And Sanit said, that much abused term, the spiritual process, is vital here. Self-reflection, connection with nature and each other. And I agree. I've been having a visceral reaction when someone puts a meeting in a meeting room in my diary when I'm on campus. And if they won't come on a walking meeting with me these days, I sort of just say no, because I spend so much time on Zoom meetings when I'm working from home that there's no way I'm going to the office and sitting on a Zoom meeting or sitting in a meeting room, especially when the weather's like this. So even in small ways, I'm sort of seeing what you're saying, Amy, play out for me in a way I didn't expect. We got a couple of comments and questions in from Jeremy. The one I want to pick up on is you were talking about how that your detox and the impact that had on you. And Jeremy said, do we really stand a chance when tech companies are investing billions into neuroscience to make us increasingly dependent on their platforms, using techniques similar to slot machines to trigger addiction and reward loops? How can individuals build resilience in a digital environment that's deliberately designed to undermine it?
Yeah. Have you read 4,000 Weeks? It reminds me.
4,000 Weeks.
Who was that comment by? Sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Jelmy, do you want to unmute
Jelmy.
and tag in?
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. Yeah, so thank you for allowing me to ask this question, because I have a case in the family. My nephew has this problem. He's very bright, but since 1 year, his life is a bit destroyed because he's developed an addiction to online games on mobile tablets and so on, and it's quite of a nightmare. And it's something that is increasingly developing in France and also I think in other European countries, but also in US. And at the end, there is a bit of difference between what individuals are trying to do versus a big system where you don't stand a chance. And I have not read the book for 1,000 Weeks, but I will write it down and have a look at it.
Yeah, it's almost, the image of kind of a tidal wave comes to mind. And we're trying to kind of stand on the shore and take the wave as it crashes over us. Because as you say, there's the incentive to keep addicted to the tech in ways that keep us coming back. Do you know what? I don't have a simple answer to this, apart from what I said at the start about the power of nature. If we can just take even just micro breaks in the day, just starting with micro breaks and just moving outside and just having the smallest of disconnection, that's somewhere to start. But yeah, we're fighting against a tidal wave there.
Can I ask another question just that was mulling around in my brain as you were speaking, Amy? And it links to what Toby mentioned about that article, AI jobs for juniors are disappearing, blah, blah, blah. I feel like there's this sort of stress and anxiety on both fronts. One is, how do I use it? What does it mean for me? How is my role changing? And the other is the kind of more traditional, like, bombardment on social media and in the news about how AI is going to turn the world into a dystopia or something. And so on both fronts, you're sort of fighting as an individual to figure out what it means to you, but also, holy moly, like everything that I feel like I can trust and know right now is probably going to change too. Are you also seeing that reflected in your research and conversations and help?
Yeah, I'm noticing a deep level of an unhappiness. I'm not noticing that this is necessarily contributing to thriving. I know it's being used now, number one, as we've said, for therapy and companionship, but I'm noticing people are generally being lost, actually, and it's taking moments of really deliberate kind of disconnection to be able to see the wood for the trees. But, you know, again, I don't have a simple answer to this other than making at least space each day to kind of recalibrate where we're at with it. You know, the small micro shifts we can only legislate for ourselves and our own behaviors, the micro shifts of just noticing how we're interacting and whether it's helping or hindering us.
So we need,
I think,
human qualities to retain our human qualities.
Yeah.
We need to hold on to that virtuous circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oksana, I'm going to come to you. Do you want to unmute and ask your question? Then Rashmi, I'll come to you.
Hi, everybody. Very thought-provoking topic. As you were speaking, Amy, I was thinking about, I think it's called situational strength theory, which basically says that if the situation is strong, humans stop behaving according to their values. If situation is weak, humans have the leeway of acting according to their values. And for years, we've been saying that if only we as humans find ways of act in accordance with our values, we will be happier. And echoes of that I'm hearing in what you're saying. You need to find a way. Now, if you look what make us happy as humans, I mean, again, self-determination theory, autonomy, we are hugely interconnected now. We are less and less autonomous. Connectedness, you said yourself, it's going, it's disappearing. Competence in whose eyes? We can all talk as individuals about how it is important to value humans, but in the end, due to network effect, fewer and fewer humans on the surface of this planet will end up deciding whether we are competent and useful. So on all three parameters, the agent, it's taken away. I mean, the situation is so strong. We less and less able to act according to our own values. The situation takes us with us, and we're just in a flood, really. So the question really becomes: are we then reduced to just practicing some relief, some resilience relief at the edges, going for a walk, etc., and basically resign that somebody else will be controlling our destinies going forward because of this flood that's sweeping us away? Or, yeah, I suppose that's what I'm seeing happening. I'm just hoping there is another way, the other answer. Sorry to come up so gloomily about it.
No, do you know what? I'm coming straight back here because I don't find it gloomy at all. Because for me, the going in point on what you said is belonging, is connectedness. For me, that's where we start to define our own, for ourselves and in community, our own questions of competence and impact. Because for me, it's the belonging and the community that helps us to see ourselves reflected in others and to work together on positive change. It's us in relationship as social beings, as social animals, where we can redefine what competence means as a human species. So Oksana, I think it's hopeful, because my hope is in, you talk about autonomy, belonging and competence. For me, it's about building a sense of community and belonging, that's where my passion lies, and that's where I think the opportunity is for us. A sense of reconnection, a sense of shared, I'm talking about the different constellations that we're part of, whether it's family systems, communities, organizations. That's where we'll redefine questions of competence as human beings.
In other words, you're saying that if the ultimate goal is self-determination and feeling you mean something in the world, and there is these three factors, belonging, autonomy, and connectedness, autonomy, and competence, you need to start somewhere where you can impact it and spread out from there. And
exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes logical sense. Thanks. That is hopeful. I like it. Thanks.
Rashmi, shall I tag you in now?
Thanks, Morag. So, Dr. Bradley, I wanted to build on the response you gave to Morag's question and perhaps direct this at both yourself and Toby, which is sometimes I find in terms of those two extreme scenarios of excitement and annoyance, I can kind of inhabit both those spaces as far as AI is concerned. And the trigger is that I really enjoy using AI tools where it improves my efficiency. I definitely dislike AI being used on me. Examples might be if I see a LinkedIn post where it's kind of very obvious it's kind of AI generated. My first thought is, if you can't be bothered to write it, why should I be reading it? And like I was listening to a podcast series, and the first couple were in the narrator's own voice. And I think from the session 3 onwards, he started using an AI generated voice. And a lot of the comments were like, okay, I'm checking out now. The content was great. I mean, the content was exactly the same. And it was related to AI. But a lot of the comments started coming and saying, if he continued to use his human voice, I would have continued listening to this series, but I check out now kind of thing. So it's not clearly an isolated view. And so my observation is AI is what I like to do unto others, but ideally not done unto me, right? And I'm kind of curious that if it is not just an isolated kind of personal view, then how do we address this in a broader context where organizations are interacting with the customers, or kind of where we are trying to improve engagement using different tools?
Toby, do you want to go first?
Oh yeah, throw it over to me. Yes. I feel, Rashmi, I feel the same way when I get, you get that reaction. And for me, it comes down to a human interaction often deals in the currency of attention. And when somebody creates 5 seconds of attention of their time to you, you're like, oh, 5 seconds. Okay, I get it. That's what I'm worth, and you feel like they've offloaded it because you're not important, because they only gave it 5 seconds. If they spend an hour crafting a response and thinking about all sorts of different things, then you're like, wow, this person is really engaged in somebody who's, put the time in. Basically, we say these words, put the time in. So I think, to avoid this, I obviously use AI too. But the way I like to use it is to augment the human. And so I'll say, it's you with superpowers. It's you, but you can see the future now, or some part of the future. It's still you, but now you don't need to spend 40 minutes of an hour doing this. You can spend, I try to make it seem like it's you with superhuman powers, basically, or it's a better version of what you are today, not a replacement. And I think that is better received by the person receiving it. And I know I feel better, but just like you, if somebody sends me something or something, and it's clearly AI generated, I just feel like, oh, whatever, throw that away because I'm not interested. So I think it's about perspective and how it's used as opposed to the tool itself, I suppose.
Yeah, so much what you're saying is resonating. For the only thing I would probably add for me is it seems to be that, in my view, using it for myself is okay. So if I'm using it to create a recipe with whatever's in the cupboard, that's fine. But when it's used on me, the same as you're saying, Rashmi, I sort of feel that I am being done to, and I'm craving the human connection. So I'm okay using it where it suits me, but there's nothing like the human moment when I'm with somebody else.
And which raises questions like where, for example, chatbots, and we're increasingly in organizations trying to replace customer service agents with chatbots and kind of using different technologies there. It's like, are we then going to put off our customers, and instead of kind of using those moments of truth of customer interaction to deepen the relationship, actually kind of turning them off?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't. This is what I was saying earlier about the pendulum swinging too far in either direction. I think we're all feeling our way ultimately, but yeah, it's it'd be great to. It's almost as though it'd be great to have this conversation again and see where we're at again. In 3, 6, 12 months' time. It's difficult to predict.
Agreed. Thank you.
Jeremy, should I tag you back in, please?
Yes, so
But
thank you.
I know we're at, sorry, just before we do, I know we're at session 5, but can I just check I'm saying your name right?
No, it depends. If you say it with a French way, it's Jérôme. Jérôme. But
Okay, let's go
Jérôme
with
is
that.
fine. And
Okay.
sorry, my wife
Well,
is.
Jérôme, you have the floor.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say, in fact, there was a film done, I think 10 years ago. It's Her with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson. And at the end, I do some coaching with a professional coach. And we had this discussion that AI or not. But I think, and he did the experiment with some other coachee, and basically he came with a very standard answer to a question if you use AI. And basically what you want when you are interacting with someone is something that is dedicated to you, right? And my question is how AI could also interpret the non-verbal part of it, because in the communication, you write or express what you want, but there is also the non-verbal, the pause you are making in the way you speak and this type of things. And basically, a coach can interpret all that, but it doesn't work, in my view, too well with AI. And at the end, we will all get a very similar answer, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there is multimodal is coming online. For example, with humans, AI is really good at picking up micro expressions. And they use this, to my understanding, at airports in facial recognition for security purposes, et cetera. So it's not inconceivable that if you had a camera on your computer, like we all mostly do, that the ChatGPT in the future is verbal and also incorporates some of those more subtle expressions, body posture, room environment, micro expressions, things like that into it. And where that takes it, it's probably a scary place, especially when it can see things that other humans can't see, at least consciously, which, they almost use it like a truth detector in some ways too. So scary, a little bit scary, but yeah.
There's a whole other session in that, Jean. It's a conversation as a coach I have quite a lot with my fellow coaches all around the world. So we should maybe tag that in with Amy's suggestion that we sit down again in 6 months and see where we're all at on this. Any more questions coming in? Have I missed any? Let's see. Oh, we've had a recommendation actually in from Paula, Shannon Valler's book on AI Mirror offers an interesting perspective on AI in general. She's just started it, reminded of the power of our own individual agency. Yeah, I think that's something that comes through really, really strongly in these conversations. But we've got a question in from Sunit. A very important angle is the leadership in the AI space, because the drivers here will be very powerful in terms of what they decide and steer, will lead to trickle-down effects of gargantuan global proportions. If we don't have mindful, enlightened leadership, then what kind of output can we expect? That's a biggie.
Yeah, and I don't, I'm maybe a little pessimistic on mindful, enlightened leadership. We're going to need a lot of that, and I, in my experience, have seen some of that, but it is not ubiquitous, perhaps. And then the other component that's very societal in nature of part of that question is how do societies value capitalistic societies, for example, over community-based societies? And all of this I think is going to play into that. And it in the US, in the UK, very capitalistic society, capitalism drives much of the behavior inside of organizations, which is also kind of scary because it appears to be driving for financial productivity and so on, which will then result in productivity being more important than human. I mean, it doesn't without that enlightened leadership, it doesn't seem to be going in the best direction. But I'd love to hear what Amy has to say on that.
Yeah, I wanted to open the chat because somebody's just come in and I missed Sunit. You just said not ubiquitous, it's entirely missing in leadership. I'm
being generous.
I'm slightly more optimistic, but then I'm looking through the world through a certain frame, which is thinking about the leaders I work with who are interested in practicing compassionate leadership, and compassionate leadership being a focus on cultivating presence for self and others in this age of distraction. So I'm slightly more hopeful. I was banging against a closed door pre-COVID, and actually COVID blew open the opportunity for people to, not see compassion as, antithetical to business performance. So I'm slightly more hopeful. I do see a growth in interest in leaders wanting to be able to cultivate presence for themselves so that they can be more effective. So that would be my position. I'm slightly more hopeful.
I would love to sort of close on that hope, but we can't because we have 5 minutes left and I want to use all our time. And Sarah has sent in some thoughts in the chat. Now, Sarah, if you're with us and you feel comfortable, I can't see you are. Please do feel free to unmute and summarize your question in case I butcher it. But if I don't see you switch on, I will go ahead and try. Okay. Your main concern, you say, is the main AI developers, USA and China, are profits that place a very low value on people and work-life balance versus places that place a very low value on people and work-life balance versus profits. Instead of waiting for regulations and consideration, which Europe would likely drive, all of Europe seems to be going with current fear-based approach that every company must immediately adopt AI in all aspects or fall behind competitively. Yeah, Amy, do you have any thoughts on that? That sort of, I talked about it from an individual point of view, the impulse control, but it seems like we're having organizational impulse control issues when it comes to adopting AI en masse. What do you think that's going to do for how we feel and how our organizations look in the future?
I find myself being a little bit resistant to that point of view, in the sense that I think we're forgetting our own sense of agency in all of this. Or we can do. To what extent we feel that organizations are doing to us rather than us having choice within the system. So I do think if somebody mentioned the AI Mirror book earlier,
Mm.
and remembering our own agency in all this, where we do have control and choice.
Yeah, it seems to be something that we sort of are forgetting. We're sort of getting swept up, and you can feel like you don't have agency in those circumstances, but actually it's more critical that you sort of reflect on where that agency is and how you can keep a hold of it before you get swept away. Toby, do you have thoughts on this to close us out as well?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. I think about China and the US and Norway and Iceland and, like, and Nigeria. I mean, just think of all these different places will have an entirely different kind of adoption of AI. And so the initial reaction from the uneducated leadership that exists today is, hey, check this out. There's a way I can cut costs. Amazing. Let's do that today. Let's cut costs. And I think if I'm optimistic, I'll be optimistic. I won't be Eeyore for a moment. And I'll say, okay, everyone who's going to survive needs to use these tools to cut costs. This is the AI or die principle. And so, okay, fine. They're all cutting costs. And some people lose their jobs because of this. Then what happens is say, okay, we did that. Everyone else did it too. So what else can we do to be more competitive? And all of a sudden they discover that, well, there's ways to use AI to create a competitive advantage using more of the human capital that we have. And we're going to do that now. And you're Norway and you say, yes, and we're going to instill some community, a greater community. In fact, we're going to use this like some countries have used education, where it raises all boats. Now we use the tech to do the low skill, low cognitive activities. Everyone gets to benefit, and now you can participate as a more enriched human in society and contribute in that way. And then on the global platform, you're selling more expensive services, which is always good for GDP, et cetera. And all of a sudden, then, yeah, okay, everyone is kind of lifted up. And in fact, your financial economic environment in your country is also improved. So I'm hoping that we get through this current part where we're just using it to cut costs, and we get to this new part where it floats and raises all boats, all human boats, more.
It's quite a nice positive message to close on, I think. A couple of things have really stood out to me from today's conversation. Amy, I really liked how you started talking about resilience is not that bounce back, it's that adaptability. You're not looking to go back to a previous state, you're looking to thrive and navigate the future with confidence, clarity, self-compassion. That really resonated with me, because I think sometimes we've lost sight of what resilience really is. It's become a little bit of a buzzword. So bringing it back to that really stuck with me. And then your point around, we need to be really mindful about not what tech is doing to us, but how we use technology and we deploy it as part of all of the tools that we have as a human to get our jobs done, to connect with others, to thrive, to live, to survive in a basic sense. Those two things really stuck with me. So thank you for sharing them. And Toby, your point to close on there about hopefully AI can, at some point, we'll get to a raise all boats situation. It's quite a nice, hopeful message to close our series on. So what's left to say but thank you, Amy, for being with us today, for sharing your insights. I think we couldn't have picked a better topic to close the series on, just bringing it back to the human in all of us. And Toby, thank you so much for your support in getting this series up and running, for your hosting, for sherpering us through this, for sharing your insights. It's been a thoroughly enjoyable 2 intensive AI weeks for me in the Alumni Career Centre. And as we can see from the number of people who've joined all the sessions, hopefully it's landed well. For all you guys that joined us this evening, thank you so much. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your input. Thanks for coming back and listening to more than one session. Please do fill out the feedback form and let us know what you thought of it. It's really important so we can know whether to host more of these conversations again. But in the meantime, Toby and Amy, thank you again.
Thank you. It's great to see
really
everyone.
great to have you with us. And to everyone on the call, enjoy your weekend. We hope to see you at another Alumni Career Centre event soon. Bye-bye for now.